Hey guys, how you doing? Happy Tuesday. How's everybody doing today? I want to talk to you today about this concept that's going around that's very important, and it should be important. It should be important for a while, but it's just kind of getting attention now, and that is AI ROI, meaning what's the return that people are actually getting on their AI investment? And that's a tough thing because, well, first off, it shouldn't be tough, but it is tough. And the reason why it's tough is because what happened is all of these tools like ChatGPT started to become commercialized and available to everyone and organizations in 2023. And at the time that you and I are talking about this now, it's the middle of 2026. So that's 3.5 years later. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever ran any kind of business, a lemonade stand, a sourdough shop selling at your local farmer's market, or you've actually done something of substance, of consequence in business, you cannot have 3.5 years to understand what your return is, let alone show what your return. In other words, if you had a lemonade stand and it costs you $4 for the lemons, well, you would need to make more than $4 when you sell that lemonade. And this is a concept that for some reason people are struggling with. Now, the other thing that's tricky is when you look at the trillions of dollars and billions of dollars being put into these new AI IPOs and into these data centers to be built, obviously the AI needs a tremendous amount of processing power. And the purpose of the data center is to process all of that data. So you're talking Okay, we're back. We're live. Hey guys. Hey again. I don't know what got cut off and what you heard or what you didn't, so I'll cover it again. But where I left off was the problem is companies are saying, company A, for example, will say, okay, well, we know that we need to use AI, but we don't know how we're going to use AI. We don't know what it's going to cost, and we don't know what our return will be for that cost. Now, any good business knows that before you invest in anything, you should have some idea of the return and the benefits of that investment. And that's not what's happening in AI. And the reason why they're investing in AI is because they're afraid of two things. And fear is not a good motivation. The first thing is they're afraid, well, if company A doesn't have AI, then customers and clients will go to company B because company B does have AI. And that's not good. The other thing is they're afraid that if company B has AI and they don't have AI, then company B can run leaner and more efficient because these providers like OpenAI, Anthropic are promising that all of your entry level administrative, HR, legal, tax, client service, all of these professions can be automated with AI. Not my claims, not my beliefs, their claims. And so the companies are saying, well, if it costs me 100,000, 10,000, a million, 10 million in head count, and company B doesn't have that cost, they can use that revenue to push it back to their customers and give their customers better pricing, or they have more money to invest in technology to invest in the future, so we'll get put out of business. Now, both of these two reasons come from a place of fear. And when you come from a place of fear, this is not good for anyone. Now, there are some smaller companies out there that are taking a different approach, that are saying, okay, we are going to invest and use AI for a specific purpose. This is the specific purpose. This is what we're going to do. But most companies are using AI as the tool to do the thing, but they don't know what the thing is. And so the only way they can speak about ROI, return on investment, like I was saying in the beginning, is by saying, if you use our model, if you use our approach, our tokenization can reduce by 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% in some cases, they claim. Meaning, in the lemonade example, the lemonade stand across the corner is paying $4 for their lemonade. So they have to sell more than $4 to make a profit. If you come buy lemonade from us, it doesn't cost us $4 for our lemons. It costs us $2. And in this example, you know the purpose. The purpose is to sell lemonade. The problem with looking at ROI through the perspective of tokenization, efficiency, and effectiveness is, yes, we'll talk about in a second ways to make tokenization more cost effective. But if you make the lemons more cost effective and you don't know that you're using the lemons to make lemonade, then what's the point? What you've just said is that you've made the, as they say, the picks and shovels more affordable, but you don't know why you're digging the holes. I need you guys to think about that one, because that's a big one. They're saying, we'll make it more cost effective to use AI, but we don't know why you're going to use AI. That's a problem. Once again, creates an arms race. Who can produce the cheapest, most cost efficient AI, and what are we doing with it? Now, the other problem is most of you are not in the AI conversation, rolling up your sleeves, using AI all day, every day. And you're not doing that because you have jobs, right? You're working full time, and that's okay. Or you're not getting paid to do this full time. And so you're busy with other things. And there are people out there that are capitalizing on that, and they want to charge you $2,000, $3,000. I've seen up to $10,000 a head to do these seminars where they're going to tell you what I just said. And they're going to tell you about more cost efficient ways to provide ROI to make tokenization more cost efficient. But once again, making the thing cheaper without understanding why we're doing the thing doesn't solve for it. And so that's not fair either. It's not fair to charge people thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars so that they can get access into a seminar to learn about this, because nobody understands what's happening. Even these people with fancy degrees at fancy companies, they don't know either. So if you're going to these seminars and you're doing it for the purpose of networking and you're hustling, I respect the hustle. You got to do you, do what you got to do. If you have the budget, if you have the disposable income, I get it. You're saying, Mark, it's not my dime, it's my company's dime. They pay me to go there. I get it. If you're going there and you're taking that information and disseminating in your company, more power to you. But if you're just the average guy and you want to learn what is this stuff? Why are they doing this? That's why we're talking. So, what are the cost efficient ways to make tokenization a better return on your investment? Well, one of them we've talked about a couple times, and that is auto routing. You set up a service like OpenRouter, you set up a service like OpenClaw, you set up a service like Hermes, which will contain Moonshot's Kimi 3, which will contain Alibaba's new model, which will contain NVIDIA's open source LLMs, or you can do the paid providers like the Groks that just came out with a new model. You can use Claude's Fable, you can use ChatGPT's 5.6 Soul, and so on and so forth. You can either use the free models, the more cost-efficient models, but the concept of a open router is you don't care. You know what you need to get done. You know what you want to summarize. You know what you want to automate. You set the thing to auto, and it knows for this task, I'm going to go to Claude. For this task, I'm going to go to Kimi 3. For this task, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. And you don't have to worry and you don't have to care what's under the hood. You don't have to worry about the timing and the firing and the cylinders of the engine. You just need to know, hey, how do I drive the car? Right? And that's most of us. Most of us just need to know, how do I drive the car? I don't care about the model. I want the model that is the most cost efficient from a tokenization perspective so that I am not wasting money, right? I don't need to take my Ferrari out and drive my Ferrari every single day to work because it's just a waste of gas. I can get something more economical, and then I can take my Ferrari out on the weekends or on special occasions. And that's the difference between using a full horsepower, latest and greatest Fable or the 5.6 Soul and letting that thing kind of run overnight, so to speak, to build automation. So that's the first thing. An OpenClaw, a Hermes, or a OpenRouter kind of a setup, or to some extent, if you're running it locally, Olama, and you're building this stuff yourself. Most of us are not building these things ourselves. We're using a service to help us host it. And we set it and forget it. And now we know that when we want more horsepower, so to speak, we just say, okay, we know this task is going to be more processor intensive. Let's pull the trigger on getting more horsepower and using a higher power model, fully knowing it's going to use more tokens, right? So we've talked about that, and I really recommend you do that. If you don't know how to set that up, reach out to me. I'll show you how to set it up. I'll give you a guide. I'll walk you through it. I can either sit with you or we can sit together virtually. It's very easy. The next thing is kind of new, and it's very exciting. We talked about how Databricks as a company has industrial Okay, we got cut off, but we're here. We're here again. Okay, no problem. So we were just talking about Graphify and how companies like Databricks has industrialized this. And if you want to just pay a couple bucks a month, you want to go with something like a Databricks. But if you're more of a do-it-yourselfer and inside of your Claude Cowork or your Claude Code, you want things to run, and their claim is up to 70% more efficient from a tokenization perspective, this is what they've done. So conceptually, these large language models behind the scenes just have very simple instruction files, which you could open up in a text editor, that are either a memory file, a skill file, or a workflow file. And every time you open up a previous session, it has to go through all of that information. Now, for most of us that use this stuff casually, it's not really going through a lot. But where you have projects and workflows and specific skills where it's running on a daily basis or a weekly basis, it has to go through those set of instructions every single time. And it's very linear. So it starts off at the top, and it goes through every single line like you would go through a line of code before it can then execute. And now it's smart for doing this because it needs to make sure it doesn't miss anything specific in those memory or those skill files. And that's what you want to some extent. But that's not how our minds work. Some of our minds work like that. Some of us actually think like that. But really, we create these memory contexts and we draw relationships in our mind. And that's what Graphify does. Graphify creates these relationships based on the information inside of your memory files, your skill files, your projects, and it creates this virtual brain. And instead of when you open up your Codex window, your Claude Code, having to go through that every single time, because that stuff costs tokens. That's how you burn through tokens. It looks at the relationships and it's more efficient. And they claim that it can be more efficient up to the tune of 70% more efficient from a tokenization perspective. So for all you DIYers out there that want to do it yourself, check out Graphify and install that. Now, once again, just because you make the thing more efficient, more cost effective, does not tell you why you were doing the thing. Once again, we say, okay, the competitor costs $4 for lemons. We only pay $2 for our lemons, but the competitor knows they're going to make lemonade with their lemons. What are we doing with our lemons? So we've made our lemons more cost effective. We have better tokenization utilization by using something like Graphify, by hooking up to a provider like Databricks. But what are we going to do with that now? And that's where people are missing the mark. And that's why the AI ROI conversation has been going on for 3 years. And it's still going to go on for probably another 3 years, where people don't understand why they're building what they're building and what the return is. And that's important. So if you want your AI to be more cost effective, if you want better tokenization, do these two things. Number one, set up a OpenClaw, set up a Hermes, set up a open router, an Olama kind of a setup where it can pick any model. It can pick Kimi, it can pick Claude, it can pick ChatGPT, it can pick Meta, it can pick Grok, pick any model that is the best, most efficient model for the task at hand. It'll do it automatically, so you don't have to look under the hood every time and know. And if you know, for example, this particular task, I want more horsepower, you just switch it to Sol 5.6, or you just switch it to the Fable model. And you're in total control, but 90% of the time it's on auto and it's more cost efficient. Okay? The other thing you can do is, if you don't want to go with the commercialized setup like a Databricks where it just runs in the background and does this for you, is you can install Graphify to build your brain. And by building the brain, instead of it having to go through all of your memory files, all of your skills files, and reread all that context every single time and burn all your tokens. Their claim is that it's 70% more efficient. It builds this brain and it creates those relationships. And now things are running much smoother. Okay, so those are the two things I wanted to talk to you about today. Either way, let's keep the conversation going. Let me know how you're using it, what models you're using, what you're seeing, what you're building. Are you using a open environment, open router kind of a setup? I would strongly recommend you do. If you are, how are you using it? Are you already doing something like a Graphify? Have you already hooked up to something like a Databricks? Have you already built your own brain context memory kind of thing that runs in the background quietly so that when you go to run and when you build something new with your large language models, it doesn't have to read through all that context. It's much more efficient. What are you guys seeing? What do you think about this? Give me a call sometime. I would love to discuss this stuff with you. Remember to hustle harder. It's raining today, so stay dry. And let's talk again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.